Hey everybody, Nathan Ronen, CFA, here with part 2 of a 3-part series for Level 2 candidates who are going to be sitting for the Level 2 exam about the typical errors or mistakes that candidates make when they are preparing or taking the exam. This is based on almost 30 years of cumulative knowledge of working with candidates at Level 2 and the kinds of mistakes that they often make and that you want to try to avoid in your study process. If you didn't listen to the Part 1 series, I would recommend going back to that. I'm not going to go over error number 1 here. So let's continue with error number 2. Error number 2, very simply, is having a poor study plan or an ineffective study plan. Okay? If you'd like to hear more about this, don't forget to press the subscribe button and the notifications bell so that you can continue receiving these, what I hope are very helpful updates as I post them on a weekly or bi-weekly basis on YouTube or other forms of social media. Okay, so with a poor study plan, I mean, that should be obvious to you. Anybody that's preparing for war, anybody that's preparing to achieve a goal has some kind of plan, whether it be a written one or or in the mind. But in the case of the CFA exam at Level 2, you should have a study plan that you can actually, believe in and execute. Because the best study plan without execution doesn't result in much. And I have to tell you, my experience is, as a candidate personally, when I was a candidate, retaking Level 2 is brutal because it's so much material thrown at you and so few questions. So you really need to have a good way to guide you through the learning process, the study process, with an effective study plan so that you're not spending a lot of time or wasting time in areas that aren't going to even probably show up on the exam or aren't going to be really heavily emphasized. Okay. Well, I think what might happen here is if I gave you a quick example, I had a candidate maybe about 3 or 4 years ago retaking the Level 2 exam for the 4th time. And they were kind of nervous because, obviously they're coming on to their 6th time soon. And if they don't pass it after 6 times, they're out of the program. They had been working with another prep provider for a couple of years, and also they had studied on their own first. Okay, and they realized it wasn't helpful. So I said, well, what is your study plan? What do you actually do? What did your previous provider ask you to do? Well, what do you mean by that? I just, bought the videos and I bought the, the study notes or whatever it was, prep books, and I just did what I did at Level 1. So there was no guidance. They just told you follow the order of the CFA curriculum. Did you have anybody you could speak to, sit down with? No. Why should I? Well, what are you doing with me right now? This is what I'm talking about. A study plan is not just buying a bunch of products. Okay, that's not a study plan. Okay, a study plan is knowing how to follow the curriculum in a way that, again, you can get the maximum gain from it, learn the most, understand the most, and minimize, as I said, even in my series 1, part 1, memorize. You want to avoid memorization. But a study plan should be broken down into phases or modules with deadlines, with what you want to achieve in that deadline, what you want to see, what topics you want to cover, in what order. That's exactly what I do with every candidate when I do a Zoom session with them, is I sit down and based on their personal circumstances, execute and create and execute an effective study plan. I don't really think many providers do that, or any other provider I'm aware of will sit down with you individually and do this with you. And that's because, again, scalability. They want to sell videos, they want to sell books, they want to sell PowerPoint slides or whatever it is, or audio tapes or whatever they're selling, and get rid of you. Now, understandable, with so many people calling, so many people contacting, it's hard to have that personal touch. That's exactly what I do. So just like this person, I sat down with them and I said, okay, let's look at this. You've taken this 4 times before, okay? Or you're taking this for the 4th time, whatever. And you have done this, this, and this. Did you ever decide to look at the curriculum, or did you read study books? Well, no, the curriculum is too much material and it's too many pages, and I'm kind of a visual person anyway. Heard this 1,000,000 times before. We reshaped this person's study plan in a way that they could actually buy into it in terms of the number of hours they needed to commit, where they needed to commit their time, how they were going to commit their time, the 5 things that they needed to do for every reading, the 6 phases that we went through. They were much more organized. They were much more structured. And that's what I'm actually doing, a structured approach based on your personal circumstances. So that is actually the major solution to this problem of not having a strategic approach to passing level 2. You want to create a personalized study plan, not on your own, but with an experienced person who can guide you through it, can mentor you through it, such as me, an instructor, okay? And then just like myself, you want to also have them checking in with you on, let's say, a bi-weekly basis to see if you're achieving your goals, okay? That is what I do, is I say, hey, after that Zoom session, I'm going to check in with you on your account page, and I'm going to make sure that you're sticking to the plan. And you yourself are going to be held accountable, and you can see for yourself, are you behind schedule, on schedule, or ahead of schedule? Okay. I'm also going to discuss the focus that you should have on different topics, because level 2 has a different emphasis from level 1. Can't study for level 2 like you did for level 1. It's going to be a disaster. It was a disaster for me. So we're going to focus on what topics you really need to understand very well and why. You're going to need to know everything, meaning you need to know all the different topics, but some topics you need to know in a different way than others, and I'll show you why and how. And then you should also have structured study materials, not just PowerPoints. If your study methodology is just looking at a bunch of PowerPoints on a video and then taking notes and memorizing, that's level 1. This will very rarely get you through level 2. You need to have a structured study materials. What I do is I provide in my videos not only the lectures, I actually integrate the concepts in my study materials in the video, and I also show you problems or item sets and how to solve them. Because if you know what you have to do but you can't apply it, again, you're missing 60% of the game. So that's what I think you should do, is not just focus or fall in love with PowerPoints, but learn how to apply the concepts that you learn in an integrated fashion among the different topics into the item sets in the way that they focus and do it on the exam. That's proper preparation. If you're just going to focus study materials, end of chapter questions, blue box questions in the readings, Q bank questions, those questions are not replicas of what you're going to get on the real exam, and they're not the caliber of the exam. The questions I do in my videos and the way I do it is what you're probably going to experience on exam day in terms of caliber and focus. Okay, I don't know the questions to the exam, obviously, but I do know how you need to study for this exam. So that is error number 2, a poor study plan or ineffective study planning, and how you could solve that. Stay tuned for part 3, the final part.